So I just want to make a quick summary of what I was talking about, wave and particle. I stated that the electron or the light is a field, and I also stated that particles doesn't exist. This is quite strong statements, and I shouldn't have made that statement. What I should have said is that we cannot assume there are particles anymore. And instead, what about, so we can't assume it's a particle, but is it a wave? Well, in my previous videos I pointed out that quantum mechanics was using a wave description of it. It was using wave mechanics to describe this experimental setup. But you can also use matrix mechanics to describe the same thing. And then the question arises, okay, if it's a wave, if we use wave mechanic method, no, why is it a wave? Well, it's a wave because we're using wave mechanics to describe the setup. So if I use, then the question becomes, so if I use a matrix mechanics to describe the very same experiment, which I can do, is it a matrix then? No, it's just another mathematical tool I'm using. So it's two mathematical tools I use to describe, or rather predict, the events in the experimental setup. So that means we don't know if it's a wave either. So we don't know if it's particle, or we don't know if it's a wave. The wave itself, I've said that a wave is a field. I've said a field is not a wave, but a field can behave as a wave, and a field gives a better understanding on what's going on than saying it's just a wave or a particle. So when I said it's a field, what I actually mean is it's the concept of thinking of this experiment is not to think about it as a particle or wave, none of it. Just think about it as a field, because it has a more explanatory power. So while we can't assume it's a particle, nor we can assume it's a wave, we can make these assumptions, but I'm saying we are not qualified to say that it is a particle or it is a wave. And if we're not qualified to say anything about them, then we could just as well say it's a field. And then think about it in this way. And it's better to think about it in this way, because traditionally we've been thinking about light as a wave, and where small stuff is particles. But it turns out that light behaves like a particle, and where the small stuff behaves like waves. So how do we reconcile these pictures with each other? Is it a wave sometimes, and is it a particle sometimes? Does it like swap back and forth? No, it doesn't. If you think about it as a field, you don't have to think about this swapping back and forth in between. It's just the same thing all the time. It's that field. Okay, that's the point I want to make. So I want to sum it up with saying that we can't assume it's particles, and we can't assume light is a wave either. This is a very interesting conclusion. And whether it is something that exists or not, I'm going to come into that question in the next video I'm going to make about, I'm going to call that pressure, tension, force. That's in a video I'm going to discuss whether this thing here really exists or not. Yeah, so we have particles that we can't assume exist, and we have waves that we can't assume exist either. So the situation here becomes very messy, and all we have is events in space that is correlated with each other by quantum mechanics. Yeah, I'm just rambling here, so I'm going to finish off.